Now on Nightside, why first responders in Spokane want bulletproof vests. The dangers they say they face during routine calls.
The calendar says October, but today's highs in the 80s made it feel like it was more like the middle of summer. I'll let you know how long this warm, sunny weather is going to last in the first alert forecast.
5 murders connected by investigators in Northern California. The hunt for a possible serial killer coming up. You're watching 4 News Now Nightside. Every single first responder in Spokane could soon have bulletproof vests just like this one. An added layer of protection the Spokane Fire Department says they need sooner rather than later. Good evening. I'm Aaron Luna. Thanks for staying with Nightside. The Spokane Fire Department says close calls and assaults are happening so often it's become normalized.
Unfortunately, it's happening more than it ever should.
In a story you'll see first on KXLY, Rania Kaur is in studio tonight with why the fire department says bulletproof vests are the next step in protecting first responders.
Aaron, right now, only the Firefighters Rescue Task Force have bulletproof vests. They're the team that responds to the most dangerous calls, like active shooters. They responded to the Freeman High School shooting. With a shortage of police officers, firefighters and EMS are oftentimes responding to calls by themselves. They say that's when things get dangerous. Walking into the unknown is often what first responders across Spokane do on a daily basis.
We've had acts of violence actually perpetrated onto assaults, onto all of the disciplines of first responders, EMS, fire department.
Spokane Fire Chief Brian Schaefer says it used to be rare. Now he's getting calls weekly from EMS or firefighters saying they were almost hurt by someone they were trying to help.
We've been, and all of us have been, in situations where there have been shots fired or shooting or a bomb that may or may not have been detonated.
The Spokane Police Department does provide support to the Spokane Fire Department, but Corporal Nick Briggs recognizes that doesn't happen all the time.
They have to go based on the resource disparity and if we don't have people available.
My hope would be that every position on the fire truck would have access to a ballistic vest that would be capable of stopping a round at close contact, which is really what we're worried about.
Bulletproof vests like this one.
This added level of protection could give us that leverage that we need just to make the job safer for the people that we have in the street.
Spokane Fire Chief Brian Schaefer says they will bring the proposal to the Public and Safety Committee for approval for funding next month. We'll keep you up to date on that proposal right here on KXLY and on our website at KXLY.com. In studio tonight, I'm Rania Kaur, 4 News Now.
Rania, thank you. Get ready for another day of sunshine and warm temps. We are tracking some smoke in the region. Chris Crocker joins us from the First Alert Weather Center. Chris.
Here are 4 things to know about your weather. Cool, clear nights ahead, including one in progress right now. Sunny, warm days this week with above average temperatures between 10 and 15 degrees above average. We are keeping an eye on air quality as fires continue to burn in the Cascades, and some of that smoke is slowly working its way in our direction. Air quality right now is in the moderate range in many locations. It's been a little bit trickier around the Wenatchee area where it is currently in the unhealthy for sensitive groups range. We will continue to see that haze on the horizon, and I don't think our air quality will get much beyond the moderate range this week, but you may notice again that haze moving in. Temperatures presently 48 in Colville, 56 in Coeur d'Alene, it's 61 in Spokane and 53 in St. Mary's. Right around the Spokane area, 40s in Deer Park and Meade. It's 46 right now in Spirit Lake. Again, a cool start to the day, but boy, we're going to warm up nicely. Blue skies and sunshine and a high temperature of 78 degrees. Our average high is 65. I'll be back with your 7-day forecast in just a few minutes, Aaron.
Thank you, Chris. Spokane police say an 18-year-old man raped a woman in downtown Spokane. Police say the attack happened near 1st and Division late last month. It happened around 1 o'clock in the morning on September 26th when the woman was walking her dog. According to court documents, Ethan Jake approached the woman asking her for cigarettes. Officers say when the woman refused, Jake hit her, then raped her. During the attack, police say she was able to bite his hand and Jake ran away. Spokane police say they used surveillance footage to track him down. Police in Northern California are searching for a possible serial killer. Investigators say they found evidence connecting 5 separate murders. They did not say what they found, but only that the killer has a pattern. They did release this image, hoping someone could help identify them. 54-year-old Lorenzo Lopez was one of the 5 killed. His brother says Renzo was homeless but was close to putting his life back together.
It's hard to process that this has happened, you know. I mean, me and my brother have been like twins since we were kids.
Authorities are now offering $85,000 for information leading to the killer and asking residents in the area to look at their own cameras for anything that might help in the investigation. And a story you may be seeing on Facebook, the Loon Lake Roundabout is now open. According to the Department of Transportation, the project took about 2 weeks. The goal is that this roundabout will reduce car crashes in that area. The department also says there will be some occasional flagging at night over the next couple of weeks, but all detours for the project are gone. Find the full story on KXLY.com. Now it's time for a look at sports. Let's bring in Alex Crescenti.
Yeah, Aaron, it's a little strange to stay still, but the Seattle Mariners will be playing in the postseason later this week. Of course, they still got a few regular season games to go, but on Monday they still had an outside shot of hosting a wild card series. But it was not their night as the Detroit Tigers jumped all over the rookie George Kirby. He only goes 4 innings while giving up 4 runs on 6 hits and walking 3 batters as the M's fall late in this one 4-3. But maybe more concerning is the storyline here. The health of Sam Haggerty in the 9th inning while stealing second. His left leg buckled into the base and he had to be helped off the field, putting little pressure on that. And now the team is just hoping for some good news as the playoffs are now just days away.
It's not an ankle. I think when people saw it originally, they thought it was a weird slide. It was kind of a late slide. It was kind of his groin area. So he will have an MRI tomorrow morning, and we'll know more then. So Hags has had such a great season. Kind of like that spark plug guy. You fire him in there, and he makes things happen. And sure enough, gets a big hit late in the game tonight. Got a great jump. And he just kind of let his guard down. I think he thought he had the base stolen pretty easy, and he did. But he just made a late slide and caught the bag wrong.
Mariners and the Tigers will play in a doubleheader starting tomorrow afternoon. Former Gonzaga Bulldog Marco Gonzalez will get the nod in Game 1, and Chris Flexen will go in the late game. Seattle will no longer host an opening round series. Instead, they will either travel out to Cleveland or Toronto later this week. And coming up a bit later on in sports, we're going to have more from the Mariners' loss against the Tigers tonight, as well as checking on the Washington State Cougars as they have a massive matchup coming up later this weekend. Aaron, I'll send it back to you.
Alex, thank you. A teenager in Arizona denied arthritis medication because of the new abortion ban. And a teenager helped an officer who was shot down right in front of her. How she jumped into action, that's coming up. And a court battle over land in Idaho taken all the way to the Supreme Court.
You know, I didn't wear a suit tonight because I have pretty much a destroyed back. And it was the sensible footwear that had really put me off. And so imagine my delight when I arrived and was handed a pair of these.
There you go.
My first Crocs.
This is your first pair of Crocs?
Yeah, I was going to try to wait to 50. They are very comfortable.
I wonder what the boys back in the biker gang would say about this.
Track live radar on the 4 News Now weather app.
4 News Now is brought to you by Cancer Care Northwest.
Democrats in Washington are threatening our way of life. Reckless spending fueling inflation. Shutting down energy production here at home. A push to defund the police. Kathy McMorris Rogers is fighting every day to stop them and protect Eastern Washington. Cutting spending to curb inflation. Unleashing American energy production. And making sure law enforcement has the resources they need. Kathy McMorris Rogers, our voice.
I'm Kathy McMorris Rogers, and I approve this message.
New tonight.
This is the first time our studio audience here in LA hasn't been required to wear a mask. I never thought I'd say this. It's good to see your nostrils.
With Charlie Hunnam, and Jimmy becomes a fashion icon.
Is there any way to make these shoes edible?
Jimmy Kimmel Live, new tonight on ABC.
Oh, life, how we admire you, are deeply fascinated by you. All your twists and turns and wild rides you take us on. The ups and the downs. Life, you live inside all of us, breathing, growing, beating. You are the reason we'll always provide world-class healthcare. Providence, we see the life in you.
Thanks to Joe Biden, food, Fuel, everything costs too much. His energy policies and massive spending spree are driving skyrocketing prices, fueling the worst inflation in decades. 2 years ago, we were a self-sufficient, energy-independent, energy-exporting nation. Today, our energy production has been crippled. I'm Mike Crapo. I approve this message. Let's stop the spending free-for-all, let loose American energy, and fix inflation.
There's a new face in local news. Kirsten O'Connor joins Aaron Luna and Chris Crocker weeknights on 4 News Now. Committed to our community, invested in you and your family's safety. Get to know Kirsten O'Connor weeknights on 4 News Now.
4 News Now is brought to you by Cancer Care Northwest.
Thanks for staying with Nightside. In the aftermath of Hurricane Ian, the full scope of devastation is coming into focus for so many as the cleanup begins. At least 98 people have died in the storm across Florida and North Carolina. Volunteers are helping get people essentials like food and water. Nonprofit Mercy Kitchen gave out 22,000 hot meals on Sunday alone. Search and rescue crews are looking for anyone still trapped by floodwaters.
There's more urban search and rescue teams in Florida now than in any one place in American history since September 11th.
Hundreds of thousands of people are without power across southwest Florida. Officials say the goal is to restore power for most by Sunday, but that's still nearly a week away. And for the hardest hit areas, it could be much longer.
Those images are terrible to see. Here is a look at our time lapse of the sunset tonight over the Spokane Veterans Memorial Arena, the Spokane County Courthouse. It's a beautiful evening after a very warm day. Tonight we'll be dropping down into the 40s with mostly clear skies, light winds. Tomorrow sunny and warm with a high temperature of 78. Here's a look at our forecast. We have a ridge of high pressure in place over the region. It may flatten just a little bit tomorrow as a weak disturbance passes by to our north, but otherwise this ridge is going to be holding tough for the next several days, right on into the weekend and possibly beyond without much variation. So we're going to have to get used to this summer-like weather. Overnight lows tonight will be down in the 40s and lower 50s. High temperatures tomorrow will once again be in the 70s and 80s across the region. And your 7-day forecast keeps things warm right on through the weekend, keeping in mind that our average high is going to be dropping into the lower 60s by this time next week. We're going to be way up in the 70s with overnight lows down in the 40s. Coming up in just a few minutes, I'm looking out 8 to 14 days for any sign of fall weather. That's coming up in just a few minutes, Aaron.
Thank you, Chris. It's a court battle that is now in its 15th year. We're talking about a piece of land near Priest Lake in North Idaho. The EPA says that land is federally protected wetland under the Clean Water Act. The landowners disagree. Now that case is before the Supreme Court for the second time. The central question at stake: what is the scope of the EPA's power to regulate private land under the Clean Water Act? The Clean Water Act protects pollutants from entering, quote, waters of the United States. This has been criticized because of its unclear language. In a nutshell, that includes navigable bodies of water and wetlands that are adjacent or next to that body of water. The Sackett's land lies just outside 36 acres of wetlands separated by a single road. The EPA believes that should the Sackett's develop that land, pollutants would enter the water beneath their property and later merge with that of the wetlands.
Well, it's only by combining the water from the Sackett's property with this large wetlands that it comes to the conclusion that there's a significant ecological effect on Priest Lake.
Yes, Justice Alito.
Whatever the Supreme Court decides to rule has national implications when it comes to developing private land and how far the EPA's authority reaches. The question for justice is, do wetlands fall into the category of waters of the United States? That ruling isn't expected until June of next year. New tonight on Nightside, when a police officer was shot in Missouri Saturday night, it was an unlikely hero who stepped in to help administer first aid. It was a teenager. Peyton Headley spoke with the young Good Samaritan who says her dad is an ICU nurse, so she was familiar with what to do in an emergency.
When I was trying to go to bed, it was all I could think about, and this morning, it was all I could think about.
17-year-old Ava Donegan keeps replaying Saturday night in her head.
I had never even heard gunshots, so that was a whole new situation for me.
Donegan was in the car with her boyfriend, stopped at a red light, when they found themselves in the middle of a crime scene.
I saw the cop get out of the car, and then I saw him get shot a few times.
Her car was just in front of the shooter's truck, so they ducked and called 911.
Somehow I blinked my eye, and the cop who was shot was right in front of my car.
The officer had been shot in the shoulder and the wrist and came to her window asking for help with his tourniquet.
He told me that it was completely numb and his hand was completely limp.
Donegan says she helped put his tourniquet on, get his vest off, and use his radio to call it in.
When I realized he needed help, it all was instincts.
Even though it was scary, she says she's glad she was able to help.
I'm just glad that he is okay, and I think that gives me a good peace of mind.
A teenager in Arizona with debilitating arthritis denied her medication the role the abortion ban in the state plays.
Later tonight on Nightline, the disturbing and damning report alleging systemic sexual abuse and misconduct in U.S. women's soccer, and the NFL under fire, facing tough questions over its handling of a star quarterback's injuries.
Stream 4 News Now on your TV for free with the KXLY Plus app.
Are you a U.S. citizen? Are you 18 or older? Have you lived in Washington state for at least 30 days? If so, you are likely eligible to vote in Washington. Voter pamphlets and ballots are available in multiple languages. Your vote is your voice, and your voice matters. Make a plan to vote. Learn more about eligibility at sos.wa.gov and get registered today at votewa.gov.
With dentures from Aspen Dental, all they'll see is your confident smile. How do we do it? We provide exceptional care all in one place, and our denture experts craft natural-looking dentures right in our in-office labs, because we'll do anything to make sure your smile looks like your smile. Right now, get replacement dentures starting at just $2.99 per arch. We can even get started today. Aspen Dental, anything to make you smile. Schedule your complimentary denture consultation now.
My husband has diabetes. Even with health insurance, we're having a hard time affording our medications. Thankfully, we have Patty Murray fighting for us in the U.S. Senate. She kept at it till Congress finally lowered the cost of prescription drugs and capped insulin for seniors at $35 a month. Now we'll save thousands every year. We know when Patty is back in the other Washington. She is working for us.
I'm Patty Murray, and I approve this message.
4 News Now is brought to you by Cancer Care Northwest.
Thanks for staying with Nightside. 14-year-old Emma Thompson has debilitating arthritis. She relies on the drug methotrexate to keep it under control. This week, the teen was denied her medication just 2 weeks after the abortion ban in Arizona went into place. Methotrexate is a drug that can also be used to end ectopic pregnancies. For Emma, the prescription was a refill, nothing new. It was denied after the Arizona state law went into effect, promising prison time for any person who assisted with an abortion.
My concern was that the pharmacist chose to not refill because methotrexate could be used to cause an abortion, and then the pharmacist would be responsible.
Walgreens' response is that issues may arise because of trigger laws in various states. The CDC reports a rise in respiratory illness and visits to the emergency room in youth over the summer, including an enterovirus called D68 that may be linked to more cases of a rare, paralyzing condition. Cleveland Clinic Dr. Purva Grover says acute flaccid myelitis, or AFM, affects the muscles. She says parents should look out for symptoms which can include drooping eyelids, numbness and tingling of arms and legs, and loss of muscle tone, which may make it harder for a child suffering from AFM to breathe.
Those can be small and subtle, so if you're not looking, you might miss the initial stages, but eventually the devastation continues to become rather catastrophic.
In addition to testing for AFM, the CDC is urging healthcare providers to test for poliovirus in people suspected of having AFM because of the similarity in symptoms. Beautiful day today. Sun was out. It was warm. Chris, it's hard to imagine that we're going to be carving pumpkins pretty soon here.
It is hard to imagine that, but we have had a pretty good streak of above average temperatures. We finished off September, making July, August, and September that warmest 3-month period in Spokane. By more than a degree. 71.9 was our mean average temperature for that time period, beating the previous record by more than a degree. Our high temperature today, 80. 65 is our average high. Our average morning low, 43. Meanwhile, here's a look at our temperature trend over the next 7 days. This white line is our average high, which continues to drop into the lower 60s by this time next week. Meanwhile, our forecast temperature is well above average. We'll be in the upper 70s for several days, and then the mid 70s for the weekend and into early next week. And indications are, very strong indications are, that trend will continue. Here's our temperature trend for October 12th through the 17th from the Center for Climate Predictions. We are in the very dark reds and hot pinks, indicating we are at the far end of that scale for above average temperatures. Strong signal that we are going to be warmer than average during that time period. And with these darker browns, also a fairly strong signal of below average precipitation. So more dry, warm, sunny weather for middle of October. Pick of the night tonight, boy, is a great one. Hard to believe that this was in the inland Northwest. Norma Jean Knowles shared this shot from Bayview, the Bayview Ponderay Yacht Club Sunday races. Those are impressive sailboats. Those are not for the inexperienced sailor, but they have a great time there in Bayview. Such a pretty spot. Have you been there?
I've been to Bayview. I have never seen the races. I'd love to check them out. Do we know who won?
Maybe that guy in the orange. I don't know.
I'm going to vote for that guy.
He looks like he's out front. Everybody wins at Bayview.
Yes, they do. Thank you, Chris. A helicopter fell from the sky with a pilot and passenger still inside. A Ring camera caught the moment the helicopter crashed into a family's home. Nick Garcia has that story.
I see the helicopter going out of control, just going out of control. It looked like he's trying to find somewhere to land, real quick. And he goes over and he just drops.
It's going to be a helicopter crash. We're getting calls. Jensen and Willow. Units are responding code 3.
Just before 10 Saturday morning, a helicopter lost control and crashed into the Salazar family's front yard.
I feel like it's out of a movie in a sense. Like for me, I'm just like, I look to the right and there's a literal helicopter next to my house.
Michelle Salazar was inside the house with her mom and brother when the helicopter came plummeting onto their yard.
I hear this loud noise and everything's shaking, and then my mom just starts shouting, "Get out of the house now, call 911. And we're all running out of the house.
Worried the helicopter might explode, she says her family rushed across the street and called 911. Fresno police say the pilot and passenger, both men, were outside the helicopter with minor injuries when they arrived. The two were rushed to CRMC, where they're expected to survive.
All the thoughts that go through your head, of how bad it could have been, but thankfully it wasn't.
According to FlightAware, the helicopter took off from Fresno Yosemite International at 9:49 a.m. It reached an altitude of 750 feet and a speed of 120 miles an hour before it quickly slowed down and dropped altitude, crashing at 9:54. Online records show the helicopter is registered to a company out of New Mexico. It's unclear what it was doing in Fresno, but officers say it was a surveying helicopter and was on a test flight.
No one's allowed there. We're not, until it's cleared, we won't have it open again.
Crime scene tape surrounds the crash site. Fresno police are in charge of securing the area until federal investigators arrive.
The Washington State Cougars are coming off a big win this past weekend, but they are in for another massive test as they get ready to travel down to Los Angeles to play one of the country's top teams. Alex Crescenti has more on that matchup coming up in sports.
Sign up for breaking news alerts with the 4 News Now app.
4 News Now is brought to you by Cancer Care Northwest.
Outsiders come to Alaska to disappear or to reinvent themselves.
Another missing woman. No one's gonna do anything about it. Not the cops, not the politicians.
You're a born reporter. You're the best. It's a big story.
We need something more, something real.
Pace yourself, especially when it gets dark. It can get dark.
We can choose not to back down. We can choose to fight. I'm gonna break this story. You mean we?
At 23, I quit my nursing job to care for my wounded husband, student loans and all. We are living proof that the American dream is about hand-ups, not handouts. That's why I think it's insane that Joe Biden and Patty Murray are sending a stadium full of new IRS agents to force families making less than $75,000 to pay for someone else's law degree. It's division wrapped in intimidation, and I will stop them. I'm Tiffany Smiley, and I approve this message.
At Washington Trust Bank, can't is a 4-letter word.
I think we should hire more people.
Doug, late for a meeting.
Hey, we need to build a home office. We're adding another bathroom.
We need a warehouse.
I can't imagine how we do that.
We believe you can do whatever you set your mind to, and we'll help you get there. Washington Trust Bank, privately owned, locally invested.
My son's name was Carson. He was just the light of my life. His anxiety and his inability to sleep caused him to purchase a pill from Snapchat, and we know that it's what killed him. Congresswoman McMorris Rogers is bringing awareness to this. She personally reached out to me. She took the time to hear Carson's story. She has been driven in trying to prevent further loss.
I'm Kathy McMorris Rogers, and I approve this message.
But coming into this weekend, we were wondering how the Washington State Cougars would respond to their disappointing loss to Oregon, and they more than answered any questions about their ability to bounce back. Now, we know the defense is one of the best in the country, especially that front seven, but it was the offense that many were skeptical about seemingly disappearing for long stretches of the game. And on Saturday, it was a little bit of the same. They could only manage 7 points in the first 30 minutes, but out of the break, quarterback Cam Ward stepped up his play, leading the Cougs down the field for 3 touchdown drives. He finished the game with nearly 350 passing yards. And after 0 yards on the ground in the third quarter, the running backs combined for more than 90 yards. Now, despite all of that, a solid second half. Coach Jake Dickert says the offense still needs to be more consistent for 60 minutes.
I thought the O-line after probably the first 2 series last week really settled in, and I thought they did an efficient, good job. But like I said, it's going to be the turnovers and being more consistent. And then, I loved our response in the pass game, defending the pass last week. And that is exactly what we're going to have this week. We can't have explosive plays going against us because they can score in a hurry. So we got to make sure, especially at the defensive back position, that communication is high and that we're keeping the ball in front.
Now, the Cougs will travel down to Los Angeles for a matchup with the 6th-ranked Trojans of USC. WSU hasn't won this matchup since that epic encounter on a Friday night in 2017. And the Seattle Seahawks are another team in our area who got a bounce-back win this weekend. They beat the Detroit Lions 48-45 in an absolute shootout that would impress even the Big 12 fans, as Geno Smith goes for 320 yards in the air and accounts for 3 touchdowns on the day. And the rushing game was just as good. Rashad Penny went for more than 150 yards and a couple of scores. Well, that's nice, and the win is always good. The defense gave up 45 points and 525 yards when the Lions didn't even have their top 2 offensive players in the game. That's hardly sustainable in the NFL.
We got to get better at our stuff. We got to get more consistent because what's happening is the explosive plays are affecting drives as they always do. You have an explosive play that the odds of scoring points goes way up, and that's the big concern right now. We came around okay on 3rd down numbers. We didn't do well on 4th down, but we did okay on 3rd downs. But the explosive plays are giving them all kinds of opportunities that we can't give up.
Seahawks will hit the road again this week as they travel down to New Orleans for a matchup with the 1-3 Saints. And we talked about it a few days ago, but the Seattle Mariners clinched a playoff spot on Friday night. But they still had an outside shot of actually hosting a wild card series this week, but they would need to basically win out and get some help in order to do so. And that would start with getting a win over the Detroit Tigers, but in the bottom of the fifth, Seattle finds themselves down a few runs, but Adam Frazier helping lead the charge back. An RBI single to right cuts the deficit in half. The M's now in business. A couple of innings later, it's going to be Julio Rodriguez. He's going to find the gap into left center. That's going to bring in another run, and just like that, it's a one-score ball game. Julio with a 3-hit performance tonight coming off the DL, and that is welcome news for Seattle fans as they're going to need him in the postseason. But in the ninth, with a man on second, Carlos Santana is going to go down swinging. That ends the ball game as Seattle will no longer get to see their team play in front of their fans for at least the first round of the playoffs. But like we mentioned earlier in the newscast, the story out of this one is the injury to Sam Haggerty. As the manager, Scott Service, knows they got to be fresh as possible coming up on Friday.
You know, with everything else that happened today, you know, obviously it looks like, you know, we're not going to be able to host a playoff game in the first series here at T-Mobile Park. So now we've got to adjust a little bit. The focus right now is try to get as healthy as we can, as rested as we can before we start our series here on Friday.
Mariners and the Tigers will play in a doubleheader starting tomorrow afternoon. Former Gonzaga Bulldog Marco Gonzalez will get the nod in Game 1. Chris Flexen will go in the late game. 4 News Now, we'll be right back.
Stream 4 News Now on your TV for free with the KXLY Plus app. At 4 News Now, we believe you should expect more from local news. Our team is committed to a community conversation and bringing you information you need when and where you need it. Numerica believes in and supports that mission.
I met Anidas 10 years ago. He didn't have bad credit, but he just had no credit to begin with. I took the time to really go over some options with him. Fast forward 10 years down the road, he's got his business account with Numerica. He's looking to buy his second home also with Numerica.
Some people say the metaverse will only be virtual. But one day, this farmer will use augmented reality to help ensure the best yield. Urban planners will model traffic solutions to help decrease commute times. Exploring a spacecraft in a museum is one thing. But one day, the metaverse will help students learn about the rings of Saturn. The metaverse may be virtual, but the impact will be real.
At Jewelry Design Center, we're one of the few shops in the country that can do everything in-house, start to finish. We're fortunate enough to have 2 locations, one in Spokane and one in the Tri-Cities. We don't send anything off-site. It's all done right here, and what that means for you is better pricing because we don't have a middleman that we have to mark up onto, and quicker turnaround time. You're having it back in a matter of days rather than a matter of weeks or months. We're in this for the long haul. We want to be your jeweler for life.
Your home is not in a tent somewhere by a river. It is not in an encampment on the side of the road. It is not behind a dumpster. I know because I've been there. You are worth so much more than where you are at right now. Your home is with safe people. You can be known and loved.
See breaking news in your area or have a story idea? Contact 4 News Now.
And your Tuesday forecast, absolutely beautiful, high temperature of 78.
Not bad, not bad. Well, if you thought running with the bulls was an exciting festival, take a look at this. Spain's biggest human tower competition happened yesterday. The human towers are built by people standing on each other's shoulders. Many of these athletes are kids who have to go all the way to the top. And look at that. I mean, that's pretty athletic, Alex. All the way to the top of the towers. There's a kid wearing a helmet. 71 people had to get medical attention. 13 were taken to the hospital. It's the first time since the beginning of the pandemic that the festival happened. Oh, that's intense.
Oh, my goodness.
That is an athlete, Alex Crescenti.
No, all right, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. All right, no, you never find me there. We'd never be reporting on this. Dangerous. You think football is dangerous? Look at that.
I mean,